once again to United Prison Ministries International, changing lives on the inside. That is the proposition we are all about. And not only us, but you also, because you viewers are the ones who make this program possible. You're the ones who make it possible for us to send literature into the institutions throughout the United States, and yes, even into all the world, in order that inmates might have their lives changed while they're on the inside. You know, we have a captive audience in the inmate situation. They're locked up with nothing but time to spare. If we put good literature in their hands, they will read it and their lives will be changed. Richard, it is so good to be back again this week.
It sure is, I'm telling you. And I'm just going to say hello to my friends. May I do that this time?
Please do.
Friends out there, I just want to tell you hello, and I'm so glad you're looking at us. And I just want you to, wherever you are, wave at me. I was waving before in another program. They said, but that waving looks so stupid. I think somebody said that. Who was it, Cheryl? Do you know?
I think that was the director of our program. We're going to have to speak with him.
But anyway, I just want to tell you, I thank you so much, and I appreciate you, okay? Who we have with us today?
They just need to know that we care, and even if the director won't let us wave again, they can wave at us while we're on the screen.
That's right.
We've got a special personality with us today. They're all special, and they're all really genuine people, because they're people who are serving the Lord. And today we have Mr. Dan Lester from Huntsville, Alabama with us.
May I have the
meet you,
privilege?
Richard.
Real pleasure meeting you too.
Nice
I
to
heard
meet you.
a lot of good things about you, because every now and then I sure to take off on a trip. I said, where are you going? She said, with the Kairos. Who are the Kairos? Tell the audience out there
Well,
who they are.
Kairos is God's time. That's exactly what it is. God's time in God's hand. You know, you and I try to rush God all the time and get things done because we just stay in a hurry. But Kairos says God's going to take care of it in His time, and He truly does. Dan has been an intricate part of Kairos for over 15 years.
Oh.
He has been inside the walls ministering to men. And Dan, I want you to tell the people something about what Kairos is.
That's right.
It's just amazing to me after, actually it's up to about 18 years now. I was just thinking when you were talking.
Right.
And it doesn't seem that long, of course, but it's just amazing to me that every weekend, I keep waiting for something to happen. It's not going to be better the last one, to be just as good. And every weekend is just tremendous. It gets better and better, because I keep waiting to burn out on it, and it never happens because of God's will. It's just amazing, just amazing.
But you know, our audience may not know what Kairos really is, really. And they may be looking at this for the first time. Explain, what does Kairos do?
What we really do is we bring a short course in Christianity, 12 talks in between, and we build community around a table. We have 6 inmates and 3 street people, and we basically build community and grow in the Spirit together through the 12 talks. We'll give a talk, then we'll write down what the talk said, we'll make posters of what the talk said, do a break, maybe eat a meal, go back and do another talk, and we just do that, and the talks all grow on each other. They start out with choices of why we're here, and where we can be and what we can do with that. And it's actually the only non-Christian talk in it. It's a psychological talk more, so the guys will realize where they are. And then build on that, just accepting and opening themselves up. And really, forgiveness is probably one of the most important parts of the weekend. It's hard to forgive when you've done some of the things that we've done in our lives. And if people don't know God, they don't think God's going to forgive them. And so they absolutely don't think they can be forgiven. And so we spend a lot of time on that. But once their hearts open up, oh, it's just tremendous. It's just tremendous what the Holy Spirit can do during that weekend. And we're really just vehicles for the Spirit. And we just try to we meet for 6 or 7 weeks ahead of time, and try to get our baggage and get our humanness out of the way so we can be vehicles for the Lord. And it's just tremendous. But during the weekend, we have surprises for them every day. And they just grow in the Lord. And they actually get up to the mic and give some personal testimony the last 2 nights. And it's just amazing to me how the Lord can open up folks, and how the men just just really open up and let God, and it's just tremendous.
It is amazing to see in only 3 short days, when we're talking about a weekend, we start, for instance, on a Thursday night and attend Thursday night programs for introduction and the beginning part of the program. Then we go through Friday and Saturday. We used to start on Friday night, go through Saturday and Sunday, but we had so many pastors and preachers from different denominations, because this is a non-denominational organization, who would come in and participate, and they needed desperately to be back in their churches, among their congregation. So we have revamped to where a weekend is comprised of Thursday night, Friday, and Saturday in most of the communities that we have Kairos in now. You were going to say something, Richard.
Yeah, I was just thinking about this, this paper that I'm holding in my hand. Can you read that? What does it say?
A life not lived for others is not worth living.
What does that say to you?
Let me hold it over there. I think I got it now. I got it now. That's it. A life what?
A life not lived for others is not worth living.
And now, what do you think of that statement?
I truly, in my personal life, believe that when we are centered on ourselves, we center on our problems and we can't get away from them. But when we start helping others, it's amazing how small our problems become.
How did you originally get involved in Kairos, Dan? What's a nice guy like you doing going to prison?
I actually, the first time I wanted to get involved in Kairos, was not allowed to get involved in Kairos. One of the founders into the state of Alabama, it was HIV positive, and they were doing the first one, and he said, we really only want people over 60 years old doing it because we're not quite sure what HIV is all about. And this was back in the early 80s, middle 80s, and we didn't know that much about the HIV positive situation, and so there was a lot of fear and a lot of unknown, and so from there, and he said, no, we need to have retirees that can travel a lot and make sure you've already led a good life so you don't have to worry about it.
Well, and you know, that was sensible. I have never heard that, Dan, that's interesting, but I know that when I got the first HIV positive inmate in Julia Tutwiler Prison in Wetumpka, Alabama, that they gowned and masked me as the warden to go into the unit to talk with this new arrival, because it was believed that it was an airborne virus that we could contact through just being in the same room with. So there were several, I'd say months, that transitioned, and her name was Mavis. I'll never forget this inmate because I had to handle her kind of with kid gloves. Is don't get near me, don't breathe on me. We locked her in a single healthcare unit area, and she was confined in that. So can you imagine being sick, being sent to prison, and then totally ostracized by everybody, and even that you couldn't minister to them in a one-on-one basis? Thank you for sharing that, because that was news to me. But I did know that we were in the HIV positive units in the Huntsville area there at Limestone Correctional Facility. Now, all over the United States, you know, they do not isolate nor confine HIV positive inmates. And this is the only state that still has a law that is constitutionally supported by the government to protect the inmates from other infectious conditions which they might get as the result of being in general population with germ-infected people that could cause them to lose their life. But it would be interesting to know that they only wanted older people that had lived a good life already.
In early days.
So if they caught HIV, then they had lived a good life already.
But you know, now every week, you know, United Prison Ministry Group goes into Tutwiler Prison with HIV.
Right.
And we go in there and sit with them, study with them every week.
Well, we now know
They
that
think
it's
because we're over
contacted.
60 or what?
No, we now know that it's contacted in a different manner. That it's not an airborne condition, that through actual fluid from the body is the only way you're going to catch it.
It's a very unstable virus. It has to be at the body temperature. Away from the body temperature, it's very few minutes that it survives. So
But I'm just saying, I'm just teasing, but we do go there every week. In fact, I think we're the only group that really studies in there every week.
There may be some others, I don't know. We have a message we want our viewers to see at this time, and I think that they will find this quite interesting.
I come from a good family. My parents tried hard to raise me right. Somehow or another, I got tied up with some wrong friends somewhere along the line, and they became my peers. I lived a pretty rough lifestyle on drugs and alcohol, never having enough money to support my habit or the idea that I thought I was supposed to be something that I wasn't, actually. And I've done a lot of time in and out of jails and prisons across the United States. I came here to Alabama after a bad marriage, which was broken apart due to my alcoholism. And when my money ran out, I started writing checks and eventually wound up with a life sentence, which I did 10.5 years of before they let me out on parole. And even when they let me out on parole, I was still wanting to go back to that same lifestyle because it was the only thing I knew. Something in my life was missing. And I kept searching for it in alcohol, drugs, friends, excitement, till finally I'd had enough. I was out on parole. I had a good woman for a wife, and she was barely hanging on to our marriage, trying hard, everything that she could do. And I was steadily chasing an empty feeling that was inside me, and I was trying to do it with alcohol and drugs. And one day I was on a Sunday night, and I'll never forget it. I prayed to God to help me because I needed some help, and I knew that I had heard about being saved and how God can help you if you really need help, and I was desperate. I was down about as far as I could possibly go in my life and my existence, and I finally reached out towards God in order to help me. Well, the following Wednesday at 9 o'clock, I was arrested for worthless checks, and I was put in the Tallapoosa County Jail. After they had finished fingerprinting me and booking me, the officer got my mattress and my little meager belongings that I was supposed to carry down to the cell, and I was walking past all these other cells, watching them look out at me to see what kind of person was coming in, whether it was a friend or something. I finally got to the cell that the officer was going to put me in, and I peeked through the window, and I saw 7 men on their knees on the floor in a circle, holding hands. It was an 8-man cell, and they were praying to God that the next person that came into that cell was going to be someone seeking the Lord. And that was where I entered. They helped me put my things away, and then after everything got tucked away and my bed made, they asked me if I wanted to pray with them, and I did. And this was something that they did in that cell 3 to 4 times a day. They prayed before meals, and I don't know how in the world I ever wound up in that cell at that time, why I was, whether it was by chance or whatever, I had no idea. But after praying with them a few times and asking God in prayer to help me, that I needed help, He opened my eyes to show me what it was that He had in mind for me to do, and that was to find what it was I was looking for all these years, that I was lost. He knew it. I was lost, and I cried out for help, and I was found. God opened my heart, He opened my mind, and I became saved right there in that cell in Tallapoosa Jail.
This is just one of the stories that we hear from inmates. The people in Kairos hear these same kinds of stories, I'm sure. But you people out there who are not going into the prisons and are not the ones who are on the front line of the prison ministry need to know that there are people out there praying in the jails, in the cells, as a result of prison ministry programs, that these hearts and minds have been reached in some way by you in your contribution to make available prison ministry programs. Now, how does Kairos operate? Do they have a big budget with lots of money that is just given and they can go out and buy anything they want to do their program with, Dan?
That sure would be nice, wouldn't it? I believe that that gentleman there, that may have been a result of Kairos. And that's what we hear a lot. And I'm going to share one story with you that people don't believe, and that is that the liaison that I've been working with for 8 years at Limestone, I tell people he's my Christian mentor because he truly is. I have seen him go through the fire. I've seen all the accusations that he's had and just the ups and downs of, we do a mountaintop experience and everybody really, really feels the presence of God. And some people follow through with it and some don't. And the goodness of our ministry is that we're not responsible for what God does with them afterwards. Mm-hmm. Now, we go in every month afterwards and do the reunions and really support them in that way. But this one gentleman is just... it's just amazing to me. I see how some of the other gentlemen will come and go, and he's just there, and God's just with him. And he should have been out 3 different times. He was at the parole board one time when they said they were getting ready to let him go, and someone said, "Oh, you haven't done this yet, have you?" And they said, "Oh, yes, you need to do that first." That was 3 years ago. But he knows that he's there for a reason, and he's a stronger Christian than I am.
And that's what's important, is that they know they're there for a reason, that they know that God still has a plan and a purpose for their life. And I've found many people who have gone through Kairos that can testify to the fact that I'm still here for a reason, for a purpose. But Dan, would you like to invite people to volunteer to go to prison with you?
I certainly would. I've met some of the best friends I have in prison. I really have. And Kairos is in only 28 out of the 50 states, and so we have a long ways to go. We're in over 250 correctional institutions, and we probably have thousands and thousands of more to get into. So the need is there, and in fact, one of the things I'm doing and what I did last night with another gentleman is visit some of the local Kairos groups to remind them of the big picture and what the gospel says about spreading the word of God. And that's what we need to do. We need to be in more different areas and more states and more countries. And like you said, we are growing, but we're not growing as fast as I think the good Lord wants us to. And so it really is important for people to get involved. I'm a firm believer that there are people in Kairos that have moved to other towns and every cities, and they still are not doing Kairos because they don't know there's other people there, and the funding and the organization isn't there to back it. And so really, I think we're going to start growing. I think that's one of our goals more recently, is to grow into some more states and really get into a lot more institutions than what we're in right now, because it's obviously has changed my life more than anything else. It's just tremendous.
Well, we get as much of a blessing when we go in, or more so than the inmates do. It's always the way I see it.
Exactly.
Is I think I'm going in to bless them, and who comes away with tears and blessing?
The inmates say,
do.
"Why are you here?"
Yeah.
Come on, what are you getting out of this? Where is it? What's we say, we get up, no, what are you really here for? And they really don't believe we get the blessings we get, but it's just such a tremendous thing. And just doing God's work is just
And you take
so
money
exciting.
out of your pocket.
That's exactly
to
right.
go to these places, to travel, to buy gas, to participate in the programs, and then make donations to the Kairos program itself. It is one where we are called upon to do more than give of ourselves personally, but to also invest our money in it in order that other people might be reached. So we want to invite other individuals who don't have a Kairos program in your area. Find out about Kairos. Our home office is in Orlando, Winter Park, Florida, and it's on the web, www.kairos.org. And there are a lot of Kairoses out there, but go until you find the one which is prison ministry inside the wall. And if you are not involved in a prison ministry, get into this one. Now, United Prison Ministries, as you know, is a literature ministry. And we were blessed in United Prison Ministries to have Kairos ask us to provide materials once they had held a weekend in an institution. And that's where we came into the program, wasn't it, Richard?
That's right. And it's a blessing, and it's still a blessing But when I think about, all these other organizations that are going in there to share God's love, they carry no literature, right? Cairo don't carry any piece of
No,
literature.
we don't provide literature in Kairos.
But when they leave there, they tell the people to contact us so we can provide the literature. Amen. So I just want our friends out there to know that I think at this point, we're about the literature basket of the United States, aren't we? Because, Bill Glass asks us the same thing, and they got 80,000 volunteers, and they doing the same thing. But I wanted to tell my friends out there, when people ask me, why do I go to prison? Now, I tell them this. I say, I got a letter from your father. They say, my father? They say, I don't even know my father. I say, yes, I got a letter from your father. And your father told me to come to prison. They said, well, where's that letter? And then I opened my Bible to Matthew, the 25th chapter, and I said, this is my father and your father too. So it's because of Jesus Christ. Amen. That's the reason why we go. That's the only reason. And like you said, the blessing flows because of obedience to him. And every time all of us go, we receive that wonderful blessing.
Right. Amen. Let's let our viewers see another message that we have for them.
You've heard the excuses. They deserve it. They committed a crime. They don't deserve help. They're criminals. We've tried everything. Nothing works. Nothing can change their lives. They're hardened criminals. Lock them up and throw away the keys. Give them life, the words of life, the Bible, the life changer. Read the true story of how the Bible changed the life of Harold Wilson. Read God Still Answers Prayer. It's powerful. It's true. Call 1-888-UPMI-123 to find out how to get your copy. That's 1-888-876-4123. It takes away all our excuses.
Dan, you've told us something about the importance that you have felt in being a part of God's plan. Not important in yourself, but important in God's plan for other lives. What do you foresee with regard to your involvement in Kairos and other people's involvement in Kairos?
It's amazing to me the number of the men that come in and get on a team and say, I've had this calling for 2 or 3 years. I went to church and I felt like I needed to go visit prison, but I just kept putting it off. Mm-hmm. It is a calling. It is a special calling, and people know it, and men know it, and women know it. And it's just listening to God and following through and say, yes, I do want to get involved, and calling the state Kairos organization, or getting on the web and finding out who it is, or calling into you all and really finding out more about it, because we need a lot more people. And there's an awful lot of men. We aren't reaching 15% of the men in the, in the prison institutions at this point. And the need is so great, and the blessings are so great for doing it. It's just amazing to me.
How many is in a group when you've got a Kairos group, and we're talking about you do it like we did at Tutwiler, is once every 6 months?
That's correct.
And how many is in each group? So you can't reach the entire population at one time.
That's right. We only do 42 inmates at one time, and we have about 40 to 50 people on the team. So we have 90 people together for that weekend, and that is broken down into tables, like I said. And the main thing is that we build the community and really build the spirit in those gentlemen, so they really learn how to bond and support each other. And to me, the real purpose of Kairos is, if you learn how to use a support group and to trust God when you're in there, when you get out, if you go look at that for a support group in your church or family, then when you have a problem, when you lose a job, the wife gets upset with you, whatever happens, girlfriend throws you out, then you go to your support group rather than to the homies that got you in there in the first place.
That's right.
And that's so important. And the other thing with Kairos that you need to remember is that once people have gone through the prison, the Kairos weekend, and are going to the reunions, If they stay in the church, once they get out, the recidivism rate is more than double. I mean, the chances, I think some long-term studies have showed less than 10% go back in versus the 80% that's a long-term recidivism rate. So the cost savings to the states and to the communities and not having men with problems out in the community is tremendous. So there's an awful lot of benefit, not only for us as individuals, but for the government. But you'll know when you're getting the calling to become part of a prison ministry. And the main thing is to act on it and not be afraid to keep putting it down.
And there's another thing that I think is very important, is that while we are changing lives on the inside, you viewers out there need to know that we have videos available for you to show you how lives are being changed on the inside. Inmates are looking for you to come in as prison ministry volunteers to help change the lives on the inside. God has an appointed, commissioned responsibility for you. If you would like a copy of this video or any of the other videos that we have at United Prison Ministries, please contact us at P.O. Box 8, Verbena, Alabama, 36091, and we will be more than happy to make available to you materials that will let you know how you can become involved in prison ministry. And I want to thank the people who make contributions to our ministry, because without your contributions, we would not be able to place this material in the hands of inmates, and we would not be able to go into the institutions and teach Bible studies. Other prison ministries, just like United Prison Ministry, stand in the same need of having people like you involved. I challenge churches to look at their line item budgets. I challenge pastors to see the need for getting involved in prison ministry. Dan, I certainly have enjoyed having you here with us to tell these people about Kairos. You know, I've been sold on Kairos for a number of years because Kairos came to Tutwiler while I was the assistant warden at Tutwiler, and it grew through the years. The first I knew of Kairos, it was introduced at Draper Correctional Facility in Alabama 2 or 3 years before we ever got it in the women's prison. But I knew when I heard what it did, what a blessing it could be. And any prison ministry that is based upon the belief in Jesus Christ as Savior, that's the reason I tell everybody, I'm not a denomination, I'm a Christian.
Yeah.
Amen.
I thought you were Shirley.
I'm Shirley. Well, I'm Shirley Christian. Christian Shirley, like Pilgrim in Pilgrim's Progress. But the main thing is that we as Christians do need to get involved. Dan, you have anything else you want to say to the people out there? 1/2 second.
I really think the importance of being interdenominational brings us closer together in the body of Christ, and I think that is why we have such a strong ministry.
Thank you, and we look forward to seeing you again next week.